This is the Lasgidi Farmer Podcast.
To accept defeat.
So now cost of fuel,
will get from using farm fresh.
Hello, everyone. I welcome you to the Lasgidi Farmer Podcast. Here in the podcast, important discussion in the agriculture sector are held, helping to generate insights that help us understand what is happening in this sector and also helping to create solutions to pertinent problems in the sector. It is all about raising productivity, helping the farmers and the various participants along the agriculture value chains. Yeah, my name is Toyib Aziz and I'm the convener of this podcast. This is the first episode of this podcast I'll be making. This particular episode has been anticipated for some time now. It should have been out in like a week, but due to one reason or the other, it hasn't. One of the challenges that I faced with executing this particular episode and podcast as well is, settling whether to do audio or video podcast. Eventually, I settled for video podcast, and because I saw that it was more captivating and enticing, but there was a big challenge with the requirement and the cost for making video podcasts, and especially with the skills required. So I had to enlist the services of a professional and also find a standard studio. But it didn't work out as planned until my friend suggested that I use some basic equipment. So this is the basic equipment is what I'm using to communicate with you now that I'm creating the podcast. And the other challenge that I've had is with that I've been sick. Just when I wanted to do the podcast, I got sick and I've been in the hospital and post hospital at home relaxing and recuperating for about 3 weeks now. Yeah. But right here today, I'm with you on the 26th May 2024 on a Sunday evening, creating this podcast. Whenever it's going to be out, it's more like it's a live podcast in the week we have now. So when I wanted to do this particular episode, one of the things that I consider is what topic am I going to speak on. I had several topics in mind, but I didn't choose them. They will later come up in the ensuing episode, but I just felt that there was a need to establish some form of connection with the audience, and letting them understand my journey, the motivational drive behind establishing this podcast. So for this very reason, this particular episode is partitioned into 3 sections here. It's about my agricultural journey. First is in my formative years, childhood period to primary school, and then high school, secondary school, and lastly university, post-university period. So I begin with my childhood period here. So what I saw was that I've always been a kid that is very curious and inquisitive about things here. When I want to know the components, how things function, how they are assembled together for plants, animals, and inanimate objects like gadgets. So when I see plant, I want to understand what are the constituents, parts that make it stand firm. What contributes to the turgidity that makes a plant stand firm, how the leaves are shaped and all that, and also seeing animals, growing and developing in real time. Yeah, I wanted to understand how this happens, and also for inanimate objects like gadgets, radio, TV, wanting to know how things work, who is talking inside and all that. So I've always been this kind of inquisitive person, and also being inclined to reality, not necessarily abstract. So I'm being drawn to agriculture from an early age and also biology. So, but I didn't really have much exposure to agriculture. But the only experience that I remember was, trying to establish a kitchen coup with my cousins, and I was always this eager, like, why can't this chicken give us egg and chick in 1 week? Why must it take about 21 days or more? It was always about increasing productivity, and this would imagine many years later. And so that is it about the primary school phase. But another thing that I recall about the primary school phase is um, in my primary school, then we attended to germinate a seed. It was between a dicot and a monocle. I think maize and cowpea or something like that. We attempted to germinate them using cotton, wet cotton, and it did germinate. So I have always been inquisitive about the role soil play in germinating crops when we are able to germinate seed without using the soil. So going to secondary school, I already knew that I was going to be in a science class because I like very realistic things, unlike in economics abstract. I'm not dissing the field here, but like to see things. It helps me to imagine, to understand things better. So the secondary school days was a very important and adventurous time of my life. Like being a boarder in a federal school, that we go to plantations and all that. So I got to see plantation of different crops: maize, cassava, cashew, orange, and all that. So it helps me, it gets me amazed on how things could be planted on a monocultural level and in diversity. Yeah. So one of the things that I used to see, I see farmers on the farm, working hard, also, harvesting, having their families, they camp, they cook together and all that, get to interact with them. And one of the things that I saw was also how farms help to maintain biodiversity. Then, you see different faunas, different floras, bees, ants, burrowing rodents, and all that. So it really sparked my curiosity about, farming system, farm itself, farming venture, and the farming household. It was very, very interesting for me. And later in secondary school, I think the biology and agriculture was very interesting to me. They were the major subject that I score high. Biology, where we did, I think in SS3 days, when we did the practical dissecting lizard, drawing different flower parts, the sepals, the petals, identifying flower parts, identifying different type of flowers, different type of animals, all that. Very, very, very. In this secondary school period, also, I got to reside with my grandma of blessed memory. She was really into agriculture, although on a small scale. Yeah, but I got to learn a lot from her regarding farming. She did extensive rearing of animals like chicken, ruminant animals, sheep, goats, and all that. So she would do is that they would give them food early in the morning, and the goat, the sheep, and the chicken, they go outside to feed themselves. Then they come back, and she provides shelter for the livestock here. And I did follow her to the market also to trade these animals. She was also engaged in trading of agro commodities. So I was very much into not only agriculture but also agribusiness. So, but why my grandma started, having this thinking, why, the small scale farmers, they produce most of the food, but what they have is in return is not commensurate. Is liking what I saw with my grandma, some of our other fellow farmers and traders, as what I saw with some of the farming communities in my secondary school, using crude implements and all that. This was what was also evident in the production of my grandma and fellow farmers, use of crude inputs. One of the reasons why they couldn't see commensurate or greater productivity with their farming, and they also lack access to some of beneficial enhancing inputs. So it was based on this that I started having it in mind that it's not just first of all not just agriculture but business, not just farming, but having access to what is going to improve the productivity of the things that you farm. Yeah, so I had it in mind that I wanted to um, make impact in the lives of these important people producing food for the nation. And when I was going to seek admission into the university, I already knew that I had to do something related to not just farming, but also helping to better lives of farmers, facilitating access to innovation and information. So um, your guess is as good as mine. Agricultural extension is best match for that. So it was agricultural extension that I chose in the university. And it was really, really very interesting because it got me exposed to different extension communication modes, how to appraise the needs of farming communities, rural communities, and is we could have this kind of outside perspective of what it is the need of the people. But when you establish intervention to address such need, you get to find out that it's not actually what those people need. They need something different here. So this is one of the things that I took for agricultural extension. So during the time in school, I was engaged in practical farming, especially in my 400 level and outreach program here. But in the course of my interaction with farmers and all that, I started seeing that to transform agriculture is not just about providing access to inputs alone and all that. It has to be like a holistic intervention because a lot of things affect farmers that don't make them productive, not necessarily just inputs. You can provide fertilizers information to farmers, but if a farmer is not able to pay the school fees of his kid, the farmers usually have a lot of people dependent on them, then there is a problem. So you have farmers that has everything physically, but it's being psychologically lacking. So these are the things that I took from agricultural extension, that intervention has to come in holistic form, addressing every part affecting the farmer's life. Yeah, so when I wanted to seek a master's degree after concluding my bachelor degree in agricultural extension and rural development, I knew that I have to do something related to broader aspects of development. That was why I chose communication for innovation and development. So this really exposed my thinking horizon. Yeah, I got access to a number of frameworks, theories of development, framework for executing, monitoring, and evaluating projects. It's not about just executing intervention. You have to be able to evaluate it to see if what we implemented actually bring out the desired benefit that we wanted. We're carrying out, evaluating the outcome, the output, and the impact here. So that's really, really quite important. So when I was done with my master's degree, I already knew what I wanted to do. I knew it was agriculture. I knew that I wanted to make impact in the life of the farmers. I knew that I wanted to make impact in the agriculture industry. So if you followed my story for till this time, you understand that I had and I still have a strong inclination towards agricultural information, agricultural input, facilitating these things to help farmers better produce, to better enhance the agricultural system as a whole. So even what I saw is that many of all these things, they have intertwined factors that are impacting them for not being easily accessible to farmers. The politics angle, the fund angle and all that. So it was best that uh, not just by physically facilitating this, but we have to generate discussion, critical discussion about these things, the underlying factors impacting a sustainable input provision system, whereby farmers, we understand their socio-economic status. Many of them, they are non to semi-literate, have low income and they might not be able to easily buy some of the costly inputs out there, and if it's able to implement, some of the high level tech that we put out there. So we have to help them to access this thing. We have to help them to, be able to buy and adopt these things, because in the long run they are producing our food, and if they don't produce, we cannot eat. So these are basically my experiences over time in the field of agriculture, and some of the key moments in my life and driver factors that have led me to, the field of agriculture, studying agriculture, and also establishing this podcast to, generate the necessary discourses that have to happen to transform the agriculture sector. And once again, the Lasgidi Farmer, going by the name Toyib Aziz. I will be bringing more episodes of this. I hope that you really enjoyed this. If there are some things that you've been able to grab from here that you think that is useful, I would like that you adopt that. If there's anything that you want to know, you want to ask me, you can always ask me. Feel free. I would really love that. So I hope that you are able to stay with me till this time, and that you learned one or two things. I really didn't plan this podcast. I just had to do it because it was being delayed and it has to be done. So I just sat, like I told you, I sat on a Sunday evening, 26th of May 2024, to just finally do this. Thank you so much for watching. Do stay tuned and frequent the Lasgidi Farmer Podcast and website. Thank you so much.